Greetings and welcome back to another Performance Matters podcast series. In this series, we're honored to be joined by the remarkable learning Sivaram Jambunathan, who will take us through the journey in several series on how to bring performance support workflow learning to the manufacturing floor and revolutionize the way people become competent and safe on the job. Give a listen.
Well, this is Conrad Gottfredson hosting the Performance Matters series. And I am joined today by a great friend and a tremendous colleague and leader in the world of workflow learning and the 5 moments. Siv, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Appreciate your time and inviting me into this conversation.
Yeah, would you take just a minute and introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you. Yeah, I go by Siv. I'm Sivaram Jambunathan. I've been in the L&D space for the last 2 decades, primarily both in the executive leadership development and also in the leadership transformation and learning transformation space. I recently transitioned from leading a L&D function for a large CPG company. And before that, I was working for global multinational firms. I'm originally from India. I've lived and worked in 3 different countries. And I currently reside near Washington, D.C. It's been fun being here.
Well, wonderful. So we're going to focus on performance matters in manufacturing. And we've got a series of discussions that you and I are going to hold. But today we want to just at a very high level talk about the unique challenges in manufacturing and why workflow learning is such a powerful option for anyone in the manufacturing space, but specifically today, the leadership involved and how you begin to bring learning and development in manufacturing into the workflow learning and the 5 moments of need framework. No one knows it better than you. No one does it better than you.
Thank you very much. You're very kind, Con. I think my gratitude goes to you and Bob for bringing this approach to this world. I've been in learning and development space for a long time, and I think our perspectives changed significantly after being exposed to 5 moments of need as to what L&D should be. The challenge with L&D has always been about how can we be a better business partner and how can we have a seat at the table. That's what we used to always think about and talk about. But I think the biggest value we got was this approach gave us the means and the opportunity to actually show up very differently with our leaders. So I'll give a bit of a background. Manufacturing and supply chain broadly, we went through significant transitions and more visibility during COVID. So during COVID, almost every person got to be aware of the challenges in the supply chain organization and how it was difficult to keep the shelves stocked for the products that people needed. So with this organization that I was part of, the biggest challenge in manufacturing was how do you attract talent? How do you retain talent? And more importantly, how do you skill them up to do the job that they need to do in the most efficient manner while being safe? The human safety and the food safety are the most important priority for anyone in manufacturing. Now, if you think of a person who's coming into manufacturing, you might be a production employee at the front line, or you could be an experienced engineer coming into the manufacturing location. The environment is very different from what you are experienced to at home. So this is a place where you suddenly have this massive equipment, you have these lines of equipment that is running consistently, constantly, and then you have to come in and learn, number 1, how to do the job, how to be safe. Number 2, how to ensure the product that you're working on is safe. And then learn the tasks that you have to do. So the cognitive load on the individual is significantly high. The second element in manufacturing is one space where you need to be both reliable and also agile. So every time you work on a product, it has to be the same consistent product that comes out with the least amount of error, with no errors that's coming out, right? That's the reliability part. But then the customer order changes, the environment changes, the market situation changes. So you need to be agile. So the manufacturing organization needs to be both reliable and agile. This means they need to learn. That's the uniqueness in that environment. So as an L&D organization, we are constantly asked to play a role in helping our talent become competent and confident to do the task that they have to do. And that's where we found that the approach from 5 moments of need, specifically focusing on how do people apply the knowledge that they have gained, and how do we help them solve the problems that they face on a day-to-day basis, and using this approach of digital coach made a huge difference for us.
Yeah. And as we've discussed previously over and over again, in manufacturing, you don't have the luxury of people just stopping their work and learning. Other organizations have been able to sell that, unfortunately, sell the idea that because of safety and so forth, we have to stop work to learn. And that's been the only option that we've given organizations. We put people into a training environment, our environment that we have control over, that we can keep safe and so forth. And then we send them back into their workflow, and then they have to navigate that path. Well, in manufacturing, you don't have that option, right? People have to learn while working. It's like changing a tire on a moving truck. You've got to learn and work safely, proficiently, and time to proficiency on the job is a big deal in terms of costs, right? And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
how did that lead you to the whole workflow learning and the 5 moments?
You're so right, Con. We cannot stop work to learn. Yes, we will at points of time, but at the same time, most of the learning in manufacturing organizations at the production floor happens when the lines are running. So interestingly, I had a plant manager tell me that when they measure the cost to competence, we'll talk about it in one of our future conversations. We use this measure called what is the cost to competence for an employee? How much does it cost me to get an employee to become competent and confident to do the tasks that they have to do? Now, the direct cost that you can think of is the salary you're paying that individual. But then the indirect cost that comes in is the wastage that can happen because somebody does not know how to do the job better. The additional cost that you need to spend because there is a subject matter expert who needs to train somebody who has to stop the work that they're doing in order to train someone else. There is fatigue in terms of the subject matter expert. Now, especially when the turnover is high, a subject matter expert or another trainer, another employee who knows the equipment better, they have to come in and train a new employee. Now, if there's a high turnover in the organization, the experienced employee has fatigue. They can't keep training again and again and again, right? So these are all the indirect costs that comes into what it takes to train an employee. So when we started this journey, the plant managers, we had a strategy session and then they gave us this input saying there is so much to learn. And the current modes of developing content, training people, and then putting the content in a manner in which people can access it does not work. So I was very lucky to meet some of my predecessors in this journey. We met Doug Holt. I have to give credit to him from FAA. He's the one who introduced me to 5 moments of need. And then what we did was I went in and understood what this is about, tried and make meaning of it. And then we said we will go to the summit. And that was a turning point for us. So we said we will go to the summit. And then what we did was at that time, we had a team of about 20 people in different sites leading L&D. We said rather than telling people that they have to go to the summit, we said, okay, who is interested? We asked for volunteers. And then we said, this is the journey. And then we did one interesting thing. There was a similar Performance Matter podcast that we listened about another manufacturing organization. I shared that podcast with my team and then said, listen to this podcast. Listen to how another manufacturing organization had done this work, and then come back and tell me who is interested. And we found 5 people who raised their hand and said, I will come. So we went to the summit, and that was the starting of our journey, because when we went to the summit, we knew conceptually we need to build this workflow learning, but we didn't know how.
Well, I do remember your team coming, and boy, you had done your homework. They had read the ebook. You had really schooled them up. And
Yeah.
so our annual 5 Moments of Need Summit, they came loaded with knowledge and questions to drink it in and to associate with other people, ask questions, really become aware.
Yeah. And the summit was an eye opener, because the best part was you were not only working with other manufacturing L&D leaders, you are working with other organizations who are in a similar journey. And what we found was the summit was super helpful in the sense that you had this range of audiences, people who were starting the journey like us, and you also had people who were far ahead in the journey. So when we turned the lens on and said, our problem is not about learning in manufacturing, our problem is about learning a lot of stuff for people who don't know how to do the job. And then we switched around and said, what are other people doing? We learned a lot from them. So, and then, of course, the brilliant thing that we did was have you come in and be a coach for my leaders. And that's what's the biggest point for us, right? So in my L&D team, I had some who came through the traditional L&D pipeline of who were experts in instructional design, who knew how to design the learning experience. And then I had some who were line leaders who came into L&D because they were passionate about L&D. And that's where we had this good range and diversity of experiences. That led us to say, how will this work? And then we had you come in and then be a coach for us, and we learned together. That's the best
We
part.
did.
Yeah.
We did, didn't we? Because I would teach the fundamental principles, and then your team would go, well, in manufacturing, we have this challenge and this challenge. So what do we do? And together, we figured out how to tailor the enable methodology to a manufacturing. So we went from a learning experience to developing a coaching experience that was very powerful that we'll talk about in another Performance Matters podcast.
But this is where I want to add another point there. So, from a leadership perspective, right? So, I think for me, the first biggest success was we found this group of volunteers who were keen to learn, and therefore they had the passion to go back and experiment in their respective manufacturing environments. But what I had done was I had reached out to their respective plant managers in advance. I had told them, we are going to do this experiment. We prepared the plant managers to receive these L&D leaders who are coming back with fresh ideas of what they wanted to do. So number one, we created space for them to experiment. The second thing was, after the summit, I took a very cheeky idea. Before we went to the summit, we made them go through an impact map. We said, what is the purpose of the summit? What are you going to learn in the summit? And what is the behavior change I expect out of you by participating in the summit? And what is the result we are going to show to our business? So we had a conversation on that. But after we came back from the summit, when people had had enough knowledge, we created a 2-minute video where all these 5 people spoke about this challenge. And then we took a very ambitious goal. We said, we will save $250,000 in the first year by implementing this approach. And each of the 5 leaders, they spoke about what is a unique challenge in their business environment. We created a 2 to 3 minute video, and then we sent it to the CHRO. The CHRO watched the video and then said, this is pretty interesting. And she sent a note to all the 5 people saying, I am really looking forward to this. So now you had the plant managers saying, okay, these people have gone for a learning, they have come back, they're going to do an experiment. So we prepared the ground for them. The L&D leaders were excited with the new knowledge. And then they had the CHRO sending them a message saying, I am quite keen to learn about what you're trying to do. And then I made the head of manufacturing listen to this video, watch the video, talk to the plant managers, and then told her when she went to this plant on a site visit, I said, talk to my L&D leader, ask him the question. What is it that they are doing? What is the experiment that they are working on? So now we created both a bottom-up push, which is the L&D leaders were excited, they wanted to make the change. Plant managers were ready because they said, okay, I want to try something else, because they were looking at how can I reduce the cost to competence? And then you had the senior leadership that was asking this very simple question, what is this experiment you're doing? I want to learn. It created a great experience for them. And then we had you as the leader who's providing the support for these folks to advance forward. So for me, we built the pyramid for them to learn.
Wow. That is so remarkable from a leadership perspective to prepare the organization for a transition into the world of workflow learning. Is there any counsel or advice you would give to learning leaders? As I listen to you, Siv, these are lessons that all learning leaders should take to heart. That is, stopping work to learn is not the most efficient way to learn. There are some things that we have to do that, but in implementing that change, you've shared with us today how you found some champions and nurtured some champions, how you fed them and got them to the point to where they could make the change, but also how you paved the way with their direct leader and with executive leaders looking down and creating this environment that encourages and motivates change. What a brilliant thing to do.
Thank you for sharing that. I think the methodology of 5 moments of need gave us the mechanism to make it happen. Because if we didn't have this approach of workflow learning that was so very well structured, I couldn't go forward. It would remain at a conceptual level, right? I think the lesson I would share is that from a manufacturing perspective, first and foremost, we spoke the language of the business. Because when the plant manager says, I'm focused on how quickly can my talent become competent and confident to do the job that they have to do? How can you reduce the time that an experienced operator spends on training and coaching new employees? How can I prepare my engineers to become better coaches? Because not everybody is a great coach, but how can I create that? We'll talk about digital coach and the value that it created for us and the space it created for our leaders, right? The biggest value for us was, in a manufacturing environment, we always look at how quickly can we help our people become safe in the way they operate their work. So we are always cautious about how much training we need to give them and how prepared we need to have them in order for them to go into the shop floor, right? We do not take any risk in that space. Now, that's where by helping people understand where is the risk, where is the biggest risk, the SIF analysis that we did, that helped us determine where is it that we can make a change in their onboarding, where is it that we can make a change in the checklist that we do, where is it that we can make a change in the changeover and sanitation checklist that they have, so that we can reduce the time it takes to send the product out the floor, right? A key metric that one of my plant manager asked me to focus on is, he would say, when you look at the cases out the door, when the training load is high, when the number of people who are being trained is high, your cost per case goes up because you are then involved in incurring the cost of two people doing the same job. And that's what he was focused on. So I think paying attention to what matters to the plant manager, what matters to the individual line leader, and the metrics that they focus on, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, performance does matter when it comes to manufacturing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In our next podcast that you and I do together, Siv, we'll talk about some of the unique approaches to real time on the manufacturing floor coaching and how to do that safely and efficiently, effectively, and how that all can be implemented in a manufacturing environment where people can learn while working. But meanwhile, thanks for sharing with us today a view from a leader in terms of how you brought a team and began a mighty change in a very large manufacturing organization, a multinational global manufacturing organization. So thank you, Siv.
Thank you very much, Con. Thanks for bringing me here. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 Moments of Need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.